Hey guys, Austrian Communications. Welcome to my review of The Package. No, not my package. The movie, The Package. This is also not the 2013 film, the 1989 movie, directed by Andrew Davis, who gave us Under Siege, and actually, I don't think he directed Under Siege. No, he did. He did direct Under Siege. Yeah, I was right. Above the Law and Under Siege. The Fugitive, and among other films. He also directed Code of Silence. And I thought it was going to be interesting to check it out, because this, it's kind of in a Gene Hackman sort of, Gene Hackman movie binge lately. We had Uncommon Valor, Bat 21. There's actually someone who mentioned The Package. I don't remember the exact last name. I think it's like a Japanese name. Forgive me if I can't pronounce your username correctly. Takeyashi Katsui, I think that's it. I could be completely wrong. I could be completely way off base, but I know it's a Japanese username. And they suggested, basically, asked me about this movie, and on my review of Uncommon Valor, and said that it had a good performance by Gene Hackman. And on that note, I'll agree. I agree. It does have it has a typically great Gene Hackman performance. But ultimately, I found the film a little bit underwhelming. I found it to be, at best, a so-so decent thriller. Like, it was entertaining for for one watch. But there really wasn't anything spectacular about the movie, or anything I've never seen before. And I definitely don't agree with the 6.3 out of 10 on IMDb. I really don't. It gets a higher rating than Uncommon Valor. I don't agree with that at all. I'm sorry, Uncommon Valor is better than The Package. So, The Package, though, like I said, is directed by Andrew Davis. And I really feel this is not one of his best films either, because a lot of his movies, I thought they have a genuine sense of excitement, and they look slick. Like, the camera work is slick. The way it's shot looks slick and polished, and looks pretty high budget for even a low budget feature. This one looked really down and dingy, and just really didn't look looked kind of cheap. I gotta be honest, it looked like a Canon film, like a direct-to-video Canon movie. It didn't really look like, this typical type of, film. I don't know how much the movie cost, but it just didn't look, maybe it was a low-budget movie, so maybe that's why. But either way, the look of the film just wasn't anything spectacular. Even the camera work, even the way that it was shot, really didn't use a lot of unique camera work that I usually remember Andrew Davis, doing a really good job with. Here, it just was kind of just static and just stayed in one place throughout the entire film. Kind of boring to look at, really. And also the pacing of the movie is severely lacking, at least in my opinion, especially in the middle portion of the movie. It deals with cliched, thriller, cliches, like, somebody knows too much so they get killed, and then, the main character's wife is getting involved now, and that she's getting chased by the killers, and it's, it's really cliche type stuff I've seen a million times over. And pretty much that's really what I felt watching this movie. Like, there's never a point in the movie where I honestly hated it. I don't hate The Package. I think it's a decent bit of entertainment, but there's nothing about the movie that is particularly impressive, other than Gene Hackman's performance and the little bit role that Tommy Lee Jones has. Tommy Lee Jones is barely even in the movie. It's like an extended cameo role. He has maybe, total of 3 scenes in the movie. Maybe 4. I mean, to put it in retrospect, John Hurd, I think, has more scenes in the movie, and he's not even that big of a he's just basically one of the bad guys. But John Hurd, I'd probably say Tommy Jones has a little bit more than him. But here's the perfect example. Tommy Lee Jones has as many scenes in this movie as, the Walter Henke guy, who he's basically impersonating. So he has as many scenes in this movie as the real Walter Henke, which isn't that many. And to be honest, the film falters when you don't have Hackman and Tommy Lee Jones on the screen at the same time, because they really do have good chemistry in the one scene when they meet each other for the first time, which has a different vibe, which I thought the movie was going to be basically they're going to be partners or whatever, and they're going to team up and face the conspiracy together, but that's not really what happened. Really what happens is Tommy Lee Jones is basically an assassin who's hired by these shadow group of conspiracy, shadow group. There's teamed up between the U.S. military and the Russians, and you have John Hurd from Home Alone and Chud, and he plays this, colonel, who plays Colonel Glenn Whitaker, who's the American side of this, and then you have Russian, I don't know who plays the actors, the Russian guys, but some Russian guys basically teamed up to basically what the whole plan is. They're going to assassinate the president of the United States and to basically begin the Cold War again, because this movie's taking place during the time when the U.S. was starting to, basically form relations with Russia and effectively end the Cold War. And the whole idea with this movie is that they're going to assassinate the president of the United States, make it look like the Russians did it, so then the money keeps flowing, I guess, into the military's pockets or something. It just doesn't, it's not really that clear. Because it really doesn't make any sense. If you think about it, like, we assassinated the president and we're going to start the Cold War again. And I'm thinking about the Cold War. It's like, did we make any money with the Cold War? Was there any money being made? Maybe there's money being made behind the scenes with backhand deals, with arms deals, or whatever. But you can still do that even without the Cold War. You can still sell nuclear weapons. I don't understand the whole reasoning behind this conspiracy. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think the film did a very good job explaining it either. It's kind of muddled. I'm just like, what? Why are they assassinating the president? Like, what is this? Why would the military assassinate the president so they can have another war? Why would you prolong the Cold War? Why don't you just have a whole nother war to begin with? That's what we did in Iraq. Why the hell would you just be like, oh, the Cold War is a war that we pretty much is, we're on the brink of nuclear destruction, but that, when we're going to end it and prolong our, life as a country and also as human beings. But no, let's extend that, because that's a good idea. I don't understand it. It doesn't explain it very well. It just has this whole anti-Russian sort of thing going on. And it just feels kind of dated, because it's in 1989, and you're like, well, I know it's taking place during the time when we're supposed to be, friends with Russia, and we're forming relations and everything. And I guess the movie's trying to act like that's not a good thing or whatever, and people disagree, and they have problems, and I understand, but to go to extreme to kill the president so you can extend the Cold War just doesn't really make any sense to me. Anyway, that's pretty much what the big twist is, and that's the big plot line is that, and the package, like, what exactly is the package? We don't even really know what the package is. The package, I guess, is Tommy Lee Jones, and maybe like a package of papers that Gene Hackman has. So, yeah. So if you're saying, that's, I don't know why it's called the package either. Well, anyway, that's basically just the plot. I'll get into a little bit more in depth soon enough. So basically, Gene Hackman, he plays Johnny Gallagher, who's, I like him. Sergeant Johnny Gallagher. Gene Hackman has some good moments. He actually has some moments where he's using profanity, which I thought, he sold it because he's a great actor. And I just thought it was different to what I'm used to with Gene Hackman films. And he basically ends up in the middle of this conspiracy. And he's basically he's a sergeant, and he's got his men, and they're doing some reconnaissance or something over in some place in I don't know if it's Russia or not. But basically what happens is there's this general guy who ends up getting assassinated, and in his car, and because basically what happens is the car stops, and the driver asks him, the general asks, like, well, why are you stopping? I was like, well, I'm stopping to check the map. And then he ends up shooting the guy. There's practical effects. Gets shot up real bad. And then Gene Hackman and his men try to chase after these guys, and Gene Hackman's men get gunned down. And then he basically then ends up getting a mission from his superiors who asked him to escort this package, which is the prisoner, Thomas Boyette, who is working under the under the name Walter Henke, who's actually a different character, actually named Walter Henke, played by Kevin Crowley. And I like the little bits of back and forth that Gene Hackman has with Tommy Lee Jones. But then it's few and far between, because as soon as they get to the airport, it's a trick, and Gene Hackman gets his ass knocked out by Tommy Lee Jones and his goons, and Tommy Lee Jones disappears for about 30 minutes. And then he doesn't show up again until, like, maybe another 15 minutes later for, like, a brief scene, and then a few brief scenes there, here and there, and then he shows up again at the end. It's really kind of... I thought the movie's kind of disjointed in the way that it's set up. I admit, though, like I'm saying, I don't hate the movie because there are some things about it that I do like. For one, I like Gene Hackman. I like his character. I like the performance. I like the scenes that he's in. He really does draw me in. When Gene Hackman is on the screen, I care. When the supporting cast is on the screen, his wife, Pam Grier, and Kevin Crowley, I could care less. Even though I could deal with his wife, Eileen, played by Joanna Cassidy, but I could take it or leave. I could take her or leave her, and basically, like I was saying before, it just becomes the cliched thriller type, paint by the numbers plot. There's some shadow conspiracy that can be anybody, anywhere, anytime, and Gene Hackman's in danger, and he's been set up because. The wife of Walter Henke that he met earlier, she got murdered, and now he's getting set up for the crime, which I saw coming a mile away. And then he ends up put in house arrest, and then his wife is in danger now. Pam Grier's character, she looks up some information that she wasn't supposed to, and then she gets killed. And it's just a lot of kind of just generic, bland, completely, tepid, boring, completely not thrilling at all sequences of these beefed up men and with mustaches basically just chasing after people, offing them, or a scene in the garage where they're chasing after Gene Hackman's wife and she gets away, and it's just really not much of anything. And it's an action thriller drama. I would say it's more of a drama thriller because it's not really that much of an action movie. So then basically Gene Hackman gets involved, gets out of house arrest, decides to protect his wife, and then he ends up uncovering the plot, that is going on. And piece by piece, you figure out the plot, which is to kill the president. And then it's a race against race against time, where Gene Hackman's trying to Gallagher has to stop Tommy Lee Jones from sniping the president. And I like those scenes. I like the last 20 minutes because they're actually shot pretty well and are actually pretty taut and suspenseful. I'll admit that. That's pretty much what makes the movie for me, is the last 20 minutes, the few scenes that Gene Hackman and Tommy Lee Jones have together, but everything else, not so much. Even when Gene Hackman ends up, I guess Dennis Franz I don't mind in the supporting role as Lieutenant Milan Delic, who's like a friend of Gene Hackman's. So Gene Hackman, because he meets up with him in Chicago because he needs someone he can trust, and then he ends up basically staying over at Dennis Franz's house, and basically then once you figure out there's a conspiracy, what's going on, he leaves his wife there, she's in danger, they're going to go after her or whatever. Actually, that's not what happens, they don't know she's over there. So actually, for the rest of the movie, the wife is pretty much safe, which is something different, I'll have to admit that. And basically what happens is Gene Hackman is captured after he goes in and tries to hunt down some of the killers with Dennis Franz's help. He actually goes in with Dennis Franz, the informant, is supposed to give him some information at a bar, but it's a setup. And then he gets captured, tied up, blindfolded, taken to Tommy Lee Jones's house, and basically gets tied up to a post. Tommy Jones gives him some milk and cookies. Later on, there comes this one of the evil military guys, I guess, and he's all like, "Oh, I see you finished your milk and cookies, General. Because I'm gonna waste you," or some shit. Really, really corny lines of dialogue there. And then basically what happens is Gene Hackman kicks this guy's ass really easily. He bends over to pick up whatever, I don't know what, to pick up the milk and cookies or the plate or something, and Gene Hackman smashes his head against the post, grabs the keys, gets out, and then you have a good car chase where Gene Hackman's driving around a car and it gets, you know, torn up while he's trying to find, you know, Tommy Lee Jones before it's too late. And ultimately the movie ends pretty much the way he expected it to end. He finds Tommy Lee Jones just in time. Originally he finds he thinks he finds the wrong place where he's hiding, you know, to, you know, get the right shot to get the president. And thankfully he's quick on his feet enough to figure out that where the actual hiding place is, and finds Tommy Lee Jones in time and shoots him before he has a chance to kill the president. And then the movie pretty much ends kind of weird, kind of an awkward ending. The editing, the way it's kind of set up is kind of strange to me. So basically what happens is Tommy Lee Jones is dead. Gene Hackman basically he survived, and the president has survived. He saved, you know, the country from, you know, the Cold War all over again. And basically what happened, John Hurt shows up. And I like this exchange of dialogue that Gene Hackman has with John Hurt. He like grabs him, you know, he's like, Gene Hackman is great. I mean, he's a great actor anyway, but I think he's one of the best when it comes to the angry, you know, he really by his anger. And so basically he goes and he grabs him, and he's like, yeah, I bet you're gonna go scurrying back over to the shadows. But you're in the light right now, and I'll make sure that someone steps on you. Or something like that. I don't remember the exact line of dialogue, but it was a good line of dialogue, and Hackman sold it. And then the end of the movie is basically Hackman's reunited with his wife, and then there's like I said, kind of awkward editing here, where basically there's a radio broadcast from in the future that's playing, that's saying that Hackman, you know, basically unveiled this conspiracy, and then like the movie ends with a twist or something, kind of like what kind of ending, where John Hurt and the Russian guys, they get in the limo and they think they're getting away, and the limo stops. John Hurt asks the driver why he stopped, and he says, oh, I had to check the map. And John Hurt's like, what map? And then he shoots him. Shoots the driver, turns out to be one of the mustached guys. Oh my god, it's Rick Rude. It shoots him, and then shoots the Russian guy, and then that's the end of the movie. And I'm like, what kind of ending is that? I understand it's a twist ending or whatever. It's the ending that shows that, oh, you know, they're still out there, and, you know, they weren't hired by John Hurt. It's another shadow conspiracy. You know, I'm like, I could care less. So anyway, yeah, that's the package. It was a pretty unsatisfying package. I mean, it wasn't a terrible movie, but it's a movie that I'd probably return to sender. Like, there's nothing about it I particularly hate, but I mean, if I paid for this, man, that'd be too much. If I paid, like, this DVD's rare, and if I paid like $13 for it, that would be too much. But if there are people out there who like the movie, that's cool, that's fine, and I don't have any problem with that. I just wasn't too impressed with this movie. The only thing I found impressive was the last 20 minutes that were taut and suspenseful, Gene Hackman's performance, and Tommy Lee Jones. That's about it. Because all the other stuff was not impressive to me at all. Supporting cast wasn't that great. The pacing was extremely slow at points. The plot really wasn't anything I'd never seen before. And the score, I hate this score. I hate this fucking score. I almost forgot talking about this score. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad I remembered now, just to warn everybody. James Newton Howard's score is so overwrought, so over the top. It's so uneven. It doesn't even fit with any of the scenes. It's just, hold on. It just doesn't work at all. I don't like that score. And if you like it, that's cool. I just thought it was very generic, just like the movie kind of felt kind of generic, paint by numbers. It's pretty much what this score felt like. So anyway, like it was like a TV movie. It felt like a TV movie score for a feature film. Unacceptable. But anyway, I really don't know what to say about the package, except if I was rated out of 5 stars. I'm going to give it about 3. 3 out of 5. It's so-so, it's decent, it's okay. It's okay at best. I definitely don't agree with the 6.3. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching my review of the package, and I'll see you guys later. See ya.